Now, let's bring you more on the Prime Minister's insistence that multiculturalism in Britain has failed. To talk through what's been going on today, really, we're joined by the political editor of the New Statesman, Mehdi Hasan. Timing, Mehdi, in all of this seems to be one of the biggest issues.
The timing is deeply frustrating because whether or not you agree with David Cameron's message that he delivered in Munich, and I happen not to, you've got to accept the fact that the timing is horrific. I was just speaking to someone who helped advise the Prime Minister on the speech, and he conceded to me that the timing was awful, it was coincidental. But surely they could have amended the speech to include some reference to the EDL. You think about British Muslims today who are being threatened and intimidated on the streets of Luton by the far-right English Defence League and are then being lectured to from a foreign country by their own Prime Minister. It's very odd.
Why do you think the Prime Minister, I mean, obviously you weren't advising him, but why do you think the Prime Minister wasn't aware of this? Everyone else was.
I think they were aware of it, but they decided to go ahead with it nonetheless. I mean, we've known about this event in Luton for several days, several weeks now. But I think the Prime Minister thinks that this issue is important enough on its own right to merit this intervention. He's been planning it for several weeks now. We've been hearing about it since Christmas, that he was going to make a major speech about identity, extremism, multiculturalism and Islam.
You have to say in all of this, he has tackled, broad philosophical issues. We can't ignore that, can we?
We can't ignore it, but I think he's tackled it in a very superficial manner. We're told that the doctrine of state multiculturalism has failed, is the phrase he uses. He doesn't define what the doctrine of state multiculturalism is. Does it include faith schools, which the Conservative Party supports? He talks about distinguishing between Islam and Islamism, but doesn't really define Islamism. In fact, the Prime Minister, Stephen, a few years ago, wrote an article in The Observer saying that you shouldn't refer to an ideology as Islamism. It's grossly offensive to Muslims. Obviously, he's done a U-turn on that in the last 3 years, and he now invokes it without any proper definition.
There have been people today questioning why do this in Munich, because the argument would be, I guess, it was a security conference, and this is ultimately a security issue, isn't it?
It is a security issue, and what frustrates me is why not deal with it in security terms? The idea that the problem of terrorism has a link to culture or multiculturalism is absurd. Terrorism is a political problem. It's not a cultural problem. The people who are blowing us up don't have problems learning the English language. It's not because they live in segregated communities. It's because of politics. It's to do with issues in the world. It is to do with the ideology, as the Prime Minister said.
But it is also to do with people feeling not particularly British as part of their heritage.
Some people, not necessarily others. You look at the 7/7 bombers. Prior to them blowing stuff up, Mohammed Sadiq Khan, people in his community thought he was a wonderful teaching assistant. He used to play football with his friends as a teenager. He loved Hollywood movies. So a lot of the terrorists who have attacked us in recent years, it hasn't been a problem of integration. You look at Nicky Riley, a white man who converted to Islam and tried to blow up a restaurant in Exeter. Did he have a problem with being British? I mean, he was born and brought up as British as anyone else. So I question the idea that the terrorism debate, the debate about terrorism and security, is an identity debate. It's not. It's about much more than that.
On the political side, is there a sense that almost because of the timing of this and the fact that EDL March was going on, that this has become more of a political issue than necessarily it would have been? I mean, it was way back in 2004. Trevor Phillips, on the other side of the fence, was talking about multiculturalism of a bygone era.
Which is exactly the point I mentioned earlier, which is let's have a debate about multiculturalism. Of course, let's have a debate about segregated communities, but let's not link it to Islamism, Islam and terrorism. It's a very dangerous link to make. Sadiq Khan, the Shadow Justice Minister, has been out today saying that the Prime Minister's writing propaganda for the EDL. He's been attacked for saying that. But Nick Griffin, leader of the BNP, this morning on Twitter, he tweeted that it was a provocative intervention by the Prime Minister. When the leader of the BNP says you're being provocative, I think you know you've done something wrong.
Mehdi Hasan, good to talk to you. Thank you. Lots online for you tonight. Go to skynews.com and you can replay incredible picture icefall that injured several Super Bowl fans. It's going to jeopardise tomorrow's game. In sport, how the holders made it through to the quarter-finals of the Scottish Cup. That's coming up, along with news of yet another injury worry for England's one-day cricket side before the World Cup.